Chapter 32. I just think it's foolish, Saber said, leaving the job unfinished.
That's your polite way of saying murder.
Mr. Blue watched the time agent finish polishing her katana.
And I'm not a murderer.
Sully plopped down on a plush teal chair.
I don't understand who this deceit woman is at all. Was she a police constable posing as a...
No, she's a time lady. A High Lord heiress from my own planet of Gallifrey.
I'm sorry. And why does she want to kill you?
Mr. Blue tilted his head to one side as he folded his hands behind his back.
You know, what's a bloody good question?
From what I've encountered, deceit is always playing a higher game. The time agent leaned against a sapphire control console. My first instinct is to eradicate the threat, obviously. But you could at least monitor the situation on Vrem, see what she's up to. The Time Lord in the cobalt suit took a while to turn and regard Saber, then raised his eyebrows and said,
Would you trust me if I said I had someone looking into the situation?
Absolutely not, Sully said.
I wouldn't think anyone would last long with that ice bucket.
Time Lords typically get tougher the older they get, Saber replied. Counterintuitive, but it is what it is. Mr. Blue is a bizarre exception, but...
That is another story entirely,
the Time Lord interjected. How many lives has deceit gone through? The time agent asked. Mr. Blue tapped the button, squinting.
No idea. My instincts tells me 2 or 3, perhaps 4.
Sully leaned forward and really stared at Mr. Blue.
So, you died times before? And those others I saw at the bar? Those are you?
The Time Lord stared at Purge's high cerulean ceiling.
Time travel, right, yes, well, no, yes and no. Those blokes are...
Future travelers, Saber finished.
Yes, I can speak for myself. Thank you.
Mr. Blue huffed. He adjusted his tie.
It's complicated. Those gentlemen are me from the future.
They don't look anything like you.
Sully was excited and perplexed.
I'm an alien.
Mr. Blue threw his arms in the air, and Sully leaned back.
I simply do not understand. Terribly sorry, old man.
Saber rested her forehead in her hand, lightly smiling. She peered at the blue and Aegean and Lapis readout screens, then locked onto the coordinates that she had been waiting for Purge to acquire.
Finally! What's up?
Mr. Blue ran his hands over the console.
We're going to visit the weird old bald Bathmonks.
The beautiful time agent sighed and crossed her arms, which, I will presume, is your way of saying Legopolis. But then, that's meeting you more than halfway. Purge echoed in a booming announcement.
Legopolis Beta, arriving!
Sully felt his stomach turn over pleasantly and his lungs expanded sharply. He felt cool air and heard a mechanical choir as a single, deep impact registered under his feet. Saber cracked her neck and walked out of Purge's threshold, followed by Mr. Blue and Sully. Legopolis Beta was a massive technological marvel. Sully couldn't believe what he was seeing. Flying cars, people having conversations on the street with what appeared to be holograms, animatronic pets. Even the trees appeared to be made of some strange, flexible metal and wire. He forced his attention to the strange time traveler in blue and the hot time lady in the black leather. They appeared to be saying their farewells.
I really could use some help out there. I have no idea what I'm doing. Are you sure your assignment is over? And where does Captain Jock get his orders?
Mr. Blue was earnest. Saber had never seen him this earnest or humble. The time agent nodded to Sully, who was lighting a smoke. You have help now. Sully looked over at the two of them.
Aye?
Saber started to walk away, but Mr. Blue gently touched her shoulder.
Sure. Certain. I mean, this is it. You're just leaving. Or the things we done. Or the places yet to go.
Calm down.
You know I'm not some kind of superhero. I don't carry a gun or sword. I bet we could pal around for a while, see some sights.
We'll cross paths again. I'll keep in touch. Mr. Blue shook his head violently.
Oh, too right. That's what they always say.
Traveler.
We'll be pen pals and keep in touch and write postcards and it never works out. It's a load of bollocks. This is it. You're leaving and...
Traveler, calm down. Saber lifted his chin, moving his head for him. Then Mr. Blue saw an emerald pagoda in the distance. From far away, Mr. Blue watched Professor Green doff his hat and dab at his neck with a lime handkerchief. I mean, we'll cross paths again, Saber emphasized with a gorgeous grin. Jackass. She kissed his cheek and laughed as she walked off toward the future traveler. Mr. Blue watched Saber stroll away. This time, he wasn't sad to see a friend leave. He was looking forward to it. The green Japanese pagoda vanished in the traditional TARDIS style, and the old Time Lord in the cobalt suit took a deep breath, closing his eyes.
Looks like there's much to do on this planet of logo pillows,
Sully said, hoping to wake the Time Lord from his revelry. Mr. Blue shook his head and peered at the old British warhorse.
What?
He shook his head again.
No, we need to head somewhere else. I don't like the weird math monks of logo pillows, as you call it.
I'd like to rest,
Sully said.
Plenty of birds in Purge. Where do you want to go, man?
I can't sleep with something that's alive, old boy. I'll never get a moment's rest.
Mr. Blue rubbed his eyes.
Right, of course.
He walked into the antique azure grandfather clock. Sully still wasn't quite used to the transition between planet surface and the interior of the Time Lord's bioship. But with time, Sully was confident he wouldn't feel so strange walking into the tiny clock and appearing inside a mammoth aquarium sort of thing. The time traveler in the cobalt suit snapped his fingers.
I have it. Someplace fun, futuristic, and full of rest.
He slapped his palms on the console and looked up at Sully.
You know, I could do with a touch of R&R myself, good sir.
By all means,
Sully smiled as he motioned to Purge's control console. Purge materialized in a massive steel foyer. Mr. Blue stepped out, followed by Sully.
Where's this then?
Sully asked.
This is a meta platform. We're on a mammoth gigantic elevator.
Sully looked around at the enormous metal room, which appeared to him very much like a huge hangar bay, except no planes or spaceships, and no personnel.
You take me to the nicest places,
Sully offered. Mr. Blue looked around quizzically.
That's odd. Anyway,
he walked from Purge to a nearby doorway. Sully followed him through. The giant elevator exited into a huge, beautiful interior of what looked like a castle.
Welcome to Midpoint Hotel,
Mr. Blue announced, his voice echoing. It was magnificent. Sully looked around at the huge, winding staircases, the Art Deco sculpture and architecture, fireplaces, fine dining restaurants. There was an old-style Italian cafe, a bar, although, Sully noted, it seemed all the guests had yet to arrive. They were the only two around.
You see, there is a giant cable tethered to Earth in your far future. It's anchored by a man-made satellite about the size of a large asteroid.
Sully looked about.
Why would mankind do that?
Oh, it's a money thing,
the Time Lord shrugged.
Much cheaper to get people in cargo and out of Earth's atmosphere in a elevator
than with the enormous costs that come with a ground launch.
Sully snapped his fingers.
Got it. Rather clever, actually.
Mr. Blue smiled.
Better for the environment, too.
He wandered off. Sully followed. As the two time travelers walked through the mammoth 5-star hotel, Sully noticed a faint residue of silver upon everything. Tiny particles, like dust. Silver dust.
What's with all the silver powder everywhere?
Sully eventually asked, although he had a feeling that the Time Lord in the cobalt suit had already noticed. Mr. Blue touched some of the residue, sliding it back and forth between his fingers. He peered off into the distance as he asked,
I think the bigger question here would be, where are all the people?